Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Sunday Night hanging right here on Sundays on YouTube, because that's the easiest place to do it, because that's how I know how to hit the live button. I'm Ben. Please subscribe if you're new, and welcome back if you're returning, because that's how that works. We've got Charles Greene returning with just stories.
Guys?
Stories, tall tales. No, because I believe it. Tall tales, I'm like, ooh, I don't know, but sort of like when David Lee Roth claims, oh yeah, I wrote that guitar solo. No, I don't think you did. I don't think you did. You might have said, yeah, that sounds cool, Eddie. That's not writing. That's producing, possibly even arranging.
I'm in the camp of I don't blame Dave, I blame Sammy. Okay, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, you guys. All right. I'm kidding. I love it all. Everything Van Halen. You guys know me. Thanks for having me back, Ben. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, man. It's good to see you guys.
We'll let a few folks jump on into the chat here. We know security's tight. They're all checking IDs 3 times. I was like,
you got to do that.
Gray hair. Just let them in. Just let them in. And let's see, who do we have in the chat? We've got Cushman NYC, Hit Metalworks, lovely Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
With a new avatar, Rock Daddy. Good to see you. Michael B.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Thomas Santiago, tuning in from Buffalo.
Come on, guys.
Mr. Anderson 59, LRM Guitars, Paul McNary, Guitar Man 45, JP Page 2, Terry 3Gs.
Gary.
Hey, there's Fruitcake Tony. He's hanging out at the Cold Snack Bar. That's fine. Ryan Hall made it. Jason Lindholm.
Jason.
Charles 75N. He's about sick of wet sanding today, as usual.
Right on.
Symmetry made it. Great to see
Symmetry.
Here. Yeah. Who else do we have in here? We'll go to the early gamers. So let's see. Yeah, Billy Baloney. He was hanging out early.
Hey, Billy. It's good to see you.
Yeah. Who else? They're all talking to each other. BC Rich 581.
Nice to see you, BC Rich.
Eddie Van Haskell made it.
Eddie, right on, man.
Eddie. My knees hurts in here. Randy Crooks.
Bro. Hey, Randy. What's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
Martin Lemaire was first in the chat. Not Zach Thong for once. Odd.
Nice. It's good to see
Greg
you.
Greg Zeppelin. What's up, buddy?
What's going on?
Doug Santinello.
Yeah. Hey.
Ooh, I think I actually said that right.
Right on, brother.
Billy Baloney still managed to sneak some contraband past security. Well, if you don't have it, they'll stuff it into your pockets. That's the great thing about my security team. They add. They don't take away. You know. Michael Krause is here.
Michael, what's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Oh, there's brother Aaron in Albus Band.
Hey, it's good to see you, Aaron. Right on, man.
Reminds me, I got to book Aaron for another show coming up soon because we're due. Corn Pop, hello. New name in the chat. Hey. Welcome.
It's good to see you.
We always love new names. William De Silva, not a new name, but great to see you here.
Hey, it's nice to see you.
All right. I think I caught up with everybody, and if anybody else pops in, we'll say hello as you pop in. Like Tom Reed.
I've never heard before here. Very cool. Very cool. Nice, man. I hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this community all the time, and I work so darn much, and so it's hard to keep up with everything. I was just chatting with Ben about it. I'm usually up to date on catching up, rewatching, catching the replay on things. And last month, I seriously just with work and everything, and I had like the flu for a long time. It's ridiculous. I may not get caught up. I may have to just start out again fresh and go. But I'm anxious to hear, since I'm in the black by this time, really would like to know what's new on the bench, Ben. What is like the most recent thing, and what's the flavor, bro, as far as soda?
All right. Well, while I grab the latest public thing on the bench, Michael B., thank you very much for the super chat. And I will also remind everyone that since it's October, all super chats will be going towards the niece's Christmas gifts, as they do each year. So that's what all that's going towards. So I do appreciate that. And any PayPals that come in this month will be going towards me, because I got to go to the res tomorrow because I got no weed. and I got $20. But fortunately, $20 will buy a lot on the Reds, so we're good there.
Excellent.
Yes, but congrats on the gig, Michael B. I should read it off. May I plug first gig in a while? Melancholy Circus at the Jungle, October 22nd, Somerville, Massachusetts, 5 p.m. sharp. One set of originals. So check it out, folks that are in the Mass area.
Excellent.
What's up, Martian Murray? New name, I think.
Excellent. I've never heard the name before. Welcome.
Keith Campbell, we know, though.
Keith, what's going on, brother?
And Brian from Oregon.
Hey, Brian.
So, what's old is new again, Charles. We did the easy way to restring a classical guitar.
Okay.
Because as you know, they tie them off up here, and they tie them off down here. Yep. Hassle. Well, the easy way is you just get ball end classical strings. That's way easier.
You're cheating.
Now, I will say, you still have to put about 15,000 wraps, and these things are not the same ratio as regular tuners. Like, I was just sitting there. I really wish I had one of those power deals, because I was just with the string winder just going to town.
Now, the purists would mock you for putting those ball ends on there, because they would swear that there's a feel when you're using your fingers and, picking out the notes. There's a difference. My older brother Richard was one of those guys. But I like that, man. And
yeah, see, like there's
it's nice to have
three turns.
It's not necessarily a steel guitar,
Still stretching.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we went old school with the kind of the bronzy wounds and black cleans.
Nice.
Which I had said in the video, the last time I'd seen black nylon strings on a guitar, I was probably 6 years old, and they were the strings that were still on my Framus that I used to drag around as a toddler. Wow. So I saw them, and I was just like, oh, I got to have those strings, because cheap 70s Japanese classical, let's put cheap 70s strings on it.
Nice. I love it. Now, the fabric guitar, the one we talked about last time, any new news on that, or
still needs to be done because it's been sitting here. So the wiring's being held in. No, it's not even being held in by masking tape at this point, but there she is.
Oh, dude, that's absolutely beautiful. That is beautiful.
I've just been having it handy to show off to rock stars, to be honest with you, Charles. A couple weeks ago, we were lucky we had RJ Ronquillo on, and I thought RJ would get a kick out of this. He did.
Okay. I saw a portion of that. I actually caught a little segment of that.
And then last week, we had good friend Stuart Cameron on from Crash Test Dummies and other outfits. Why does that only have 3 screws? Because that's me, right? I only mount pickup rings with 3 screws, apparently. That's my thing. So we showed it off to Stuart, and he thought it was pretty cool, too. And he'll be able to see it in person because he's popping over for a visit in the next couple of weeks. He's doing some recording at the Tragically Hips studio.
Really?
Which is just outside Kingston, Ontario. And I'm halfway in between for him. So, Mazel stop in here, use the facilities, and borrow some gear to take with him.
Excellent. That's great, Ben. Good deal.
Then we got the new. That this will be out this coming Friday. Because I snagged this up a couple of weeks ago. The vintage.
Oh, check this out.
Icon V6. Yeah, fretboard looks much
nice.
And this, Charles, there is like 0 fret wear. I polished the frets on it. I didn't think it needed it, but I was surprised. They were actually quite dull. No dents whatsoever. There's no scratches on the pick guard. There's still the plastic under the knobs because the guy didn't bother removing the knobs.
Wow.
But the problem was, once I lowered the action a bit to where I liked it, the old saddles, the height adjustments start turning the cheeseburger.
Kicking into your heel of your hand.
Yeah, and I went, that's no bueno. So for the first time in my life, because I've threatened doing it to multiple guitars, but I actually ripped the neck off this and threw a neck shim in it for the first time ever. And way better, because I was able to raise the saddles right up and still get where I liked it. And
Yeah.
I might tweak the truss rod. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I'm really digging it. It's got a Wilkinson bridge, Wilkinson pickups. These things, they're like $500 new.
The quality of the build now they weren't so good 25 years ago. When you bought an economy guitar, it was most really like a likelihood that there would be fret sprout and unfinished work on the neck that would cut your fingers and slice. It was normal. I remember Squire. Well, I didn't buy it then, but I played on a Squire like 20 years ago, and it was a very inexpensive, like a Bullet. That was $110, $20 guitar.
Sure.
And it would cut you to play the guitar. You would hurt yourself. It would, the guitar would bite back. And it's all because the fit and finish wasn't there. But the last inexpensive, well, not the last guitar, before just fell in my lap, and it's a Jackson Dinky. It's like I think it's a 2017 Jackson Dinky, and in just pristine condition.
Sure.
And finish on the guitar is this is right there. It's killer. It's wonderful for a flat economy guitar.
Oh, hell yeah.
Wonderful. It's got a compound rating 12 to 16. Jackson necks are they're wonderful necks. They're fast necks. They take low action.
They do.
And so, Neil Daly built me a guitar. He built me a Hot for Teacher. You want to see it real quick?
Yes.
Here, I got it set up to where I like it now. I like the action to be nice and low too, Ben. You know me.
Sure. Why he working hard.
Neil did this for me. It's essentially just a Kramer. That's what it is, with a modified single pickup. It's a DiMarzio Super Distortion.
Yeah, it's Kramer with a fancy paint job.
He did the relicking on here for me, and it's super spectacular. And Lori Tucker, the supermodel in Hot for Teacher in the 1984 video, she signed the back of this headstock for me. Neil, he's a wonderful guitar builder, and awesome. He knew Lori. He set the whole thing up. Well, she's a friend of the channel and everything, but
sure. He
asked her if she would do that for me, and she did graciously. I thank her from the bottom of my heart every time I get a chance. And so I've been playing this. This is my newest guitar that I absolutely love it. And thank you, Neil. I just want to say that out, on the channels. If anyone's going to get
some good work,
and they especially you don't have to have an affinity for striped Edward Van Halen style guitars. It doesn't hurt, but he does custom work as far as his paint work, and his guitar building is spectacular.
And he's not afraid to do what you want, which is,
comfortable build.
I've seen where there's guys that think they do it right, and they don't do it right at all, right? But they think they do it right. And then there's the guys like, good friend Dave Nesdall, where if you contacted him, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be exact.
Yes.
But you got to pay for that, because he would do basically art exhibit pieces, right? Like replica, but you're paying.
That's right.
It takes time. I forgot. He told me the hours, the man hours it takes to produce one of those, and I get it. And I remember when Neil was building yours, I was tuned into an episode of Halenville Wednesday evenings here on Fruitcake Tony's channel, and he said, "I'm showing the body," and you went, "I don't want to be that guy, Neil." He's like, "Yeah." You're like, "Can you do a little more buckle rash?" And he's like, "It's your guitar." Yes. Fine.
It was night and day too. He didn't just tweak it a little bit. He gave me what I asked for, and then he asked me what I like more. And at a certain point, I just, you got to keep it in reality. What he had there was one of a kind and beautiful. And so any more relicking done to it, I will do to it naturally.
Exactly.
And that guitar relics well. It weathers well. It's built to do
that.
It's 40 years old. It blows my mind. It's so funny, though, when my kids, like my daughter, she's used to me getting guitars. She's used, and she always had this excited look, like she always did really want to see them when I take them out of the case. And when I showed her the Frankie, that's the first time she had ever seen a relic guitar, much less a Frankenstein, which is a little crazy looking. If you've never seen one, you give it a double take, a triple take in many cases. And I showed it to her, and the look on her face was one of, have you lost your mind? You paid how much for what? And she was like angry. And I had to explain to her, no, sweetheart. No, you don't understand. This is boom, boom. This is what this is. And then she comes around. And I kind of got the same face when I got the Hot for Teacher. She's not understanding this quite yet, Ben, but I'm going to have a talk with her. We're going to work this out.
I will agree. The first time you see something that's relicked that to that level, like you open up the case and you see that, right? And you're expecting to see, showroom alt. Yeah, what's that? From the Road Warrior? Like, this thing has been beat to death. But on the other hand, I see a guitar like that. I'm like, oh, the stories this guitar could tell.
Yeah. It's funny, my son Daniel, he's a guitar player. He's a better guitar player than I will ever be. I got to give him some props. And he likes a ESP style compound radius neck, like a Jackson neck. That's his thing. And
excuse me.
He picks this guitar up, and right off the bat, the first thing out of his mouth when he grabbed it, he goes, "Oh, I don't like this." And he's grabbing the neck, Ben. He's doing this, you guys.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you need to play it because it's not what you're used to. And he goes, what's going on here? And I said, it's funny. I say this to him.
Yeah.
That's a 12-inch standard radius. It's 12 inches from top end to end. There's no compound to it. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
And he's playing and he goes, I don't think I like this. And I said, well, just play it for a little bit. And so he doesn't say another word for about 5. And in 5 minutes, he's just playing the guitar. He's playing it wide open, nonstop, just playing it. Didn't stop for like 15, 20 minutes. He gets done and he's just like, wow. He said, this is great. And I said, well, there's a small learning curve, but that's the first time it's kind of a proud father thing. It's the first time I've ever seen him differentiate between 2 different necks and actually get it, and one's not worse than the other. Just you get used to one thing and you need to train yourself to be used to the other for whatever the reason might be. Well, that's
like was it the new Fender Vintage series that came out in the last couple weeks? They went back with the vintage 7 1/4 radius fretboard, and people were complaining, oh, you can't bend notes. And it's like, you wanted a vintage guitar, guess what you get?
That's too much radius though. And I that's just something I don't want to retrain myself to have that kind of radius because I'm happy in the world I'm at. So I'm not knocking it. I just,
for me, I'm like, yay. And I hope they kept small frets to go along with it because that's what I learned on. So I was like, oh, finally something I can play. Anyway. Bird Burful, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, thanks for the t-shirt last time, Charles.
Bird, you rock, brother. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Hey, we're going to do some trivia tonight. We're going to do 2 trivias, not 1, but 2. Ben has been gracious. In the spirit of Halenville, we're going to give away a couple of t-shirts, you guys.
We got Scott Brockway in the chat. Good to see you, my friend.
Scott, it's good to see you,
Who else did I see pop in here? Squire Telecaster. I Rock Some Blues.
Very cool.
I apologize because apparently I got a tickle in my throat as soon as we went live. So
did I, Ben, and I'm drinking coffee, but
I got root beer. It's nice and thick
or anything like that. I just got just a horrible case of just regular flu. And then it hit our buddy Brendan. Brendan B. Squared. It hit him, and he was down for more than a week. So we're all coming back. I'm also a shout out to Sandra Corny in the chat. I'm really anxious to see. She went ghost hunting yesterday, and it's still an ongoing thing for her channel. I think it's going to be some of the best content. I'm hoping it'll be some of the best content she has ever put up. And I'm really
She does that stuff really well, I can say, from hearing from fellow members of the community, Charles. Personally, I'm not going to watch it because that stuff freaks me the fuck out. And so I can't. I just can't. I just can't deal with it.
A fan.
Sandra, I am more than happy to shout out 3 people to watch it in my steed. So I will
Excellent.
say that.
Excellent.
But
Right
yeah, if
there.
you're into that stuff, folks, definitely check it out. Sandra does it well, and it just freaks me out. So
Excellent. Excellent.
yes. And also, while I think of it, because we got a bunch of the regulars in the chat, for patrons and members, we're doing a Zoom hang this Wednesday before Halemville. So 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing our hang, and then we'll break it up in time for everyone to go and hang out over at Tony's channel. So
we're all dressing up for Halloween. We're doing on the Saturday night show before Halloween, and I've been kind of seriously joking about it for the last month. I'm not procrastinating, but I really could not figure out who I wanted to be or what I wanted to be for Halloween. And I narrowed it down and I pretty much got it nailed in. So I'm ready.
Okay. I'm also doing, what was it, the 30th? Because, yeah, the 29th would be the Saturday. The 30th, I'm doing a Halloween show as well.
Excellent.
We've got 3 or 4 people confirmed. Of course, everybody, if you want on, you got to be in costume. And RSVP, there's only so many slots available. And I already threw it out to the channel members and patrons first. Got limited response, so it's open to anybody at this point. Offer it to them first because, they help support the channel. And I'm just going to wear basically the same costume I wore last year, which is the one day a year I can wear a dashiki on air and everyone's cool with it because I'm like, hey, I'm a hippie.
Cool. Very cool. That's not bad. I think I was like a Dark Lord or something along those lines. But I'm doing something else.
No, I'd have to shave the beard. I was like, maybe I'll do Ace Frehley. I haven't done that in a few years.
I remember Dane Zimmerman did. It was Ace, wasn't it? Wasn't it Ace he did? Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, I believe it was. He had his face painted on the show. It was outstanding, man. Outstanding. Zim's guitars, man.
Okay, Billy's in. Okay, so we got Billy in. Randy Crooks is in. Charles 75N's in. My sister and myself so far.
Your sister does some really cool face art. Well, yeah, I'm telling you. Look what I'm telling. Amanda, super cool, man. Super, super cool.
Hey, RJ, Mad Raj. I forgot to say
guys. Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm in, because it's an excuse for her to buy another costume because she loves dressing up. So I was like, okay. It'd be October 30th. Or are you talking about the Zoom call, Guitar Man? Zoom call Wednesday at 7. The Halloween show, Sunday at 8 p.m., the night before Halloween. Yes. Well, apparently Symmetry's in as well. Okay. Michael B.
Excellent.
All right. Filling up fast.
Excellent. That's going to be a really cool party, you guys.
Awesome.
Nice. What do you want to talk about, Ben?
I
was telling Ben, you guys, normally I have like a couple of stories prepared and I'm semi in tune and ready. This is the first show where I'm sort of really just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Not that I'm unprepared. I just don't really have any specific direction. If you guys have questions and you want to ask me something about the early 80s in LA, feel free to ask. No problem.
I have one.
Cool.
Have you ever been in a music video?
That's funny you say that. It's very possible that I was in a couple of punk videos.
Mm-hmm.
A couple were on MTV, and it just strictly would be background where I was, off. It would be sort of back in a group of people. I've definitely pictures there would be on YouTube of concerts from the 80s, especially in the LA area.
Because I was thinking, it's one thing if someone shoots their set, and they turn it into back in the day because nobody had camera phones. You weren't. If you're playing, if you're playing the whiskey, you can't afford to have somebody film you play the whiskey, unless it's, hey, we're planning on using the footage as part of a music video. Like, there's got to be a dedicated reason.
A lot of the events that I worked with West Security were, large venue events, festival style things of that nature, the Forum. And in the early days, they would film many of those. When the Stones, I was talking about the Stones actually last week on, or just the other day on Show Me Your Pick. We were talking George Thorogood. Well, in 1981, the Stones embarked on the biggest world tour to date for those guys. And they brought George Thorogood, Isles, and Prince, who was the opening act, along with them. And they did 2 shows, 3-day period. And I worked the first show. I didn't work the second show 2 days later because I was an employee at the Whiskey A Go-Go and I had to work that night. And that was all filmed. I mean, it was filmed in multiple areas, just like the US Festival. So yeah, I'm out there somewhere.
Nice. Randy Crooks was asking, any interaction with the band Tesla?
Not so much. I would have liked a lot more. I remember when they did the Texas Jam, and they literally stole the show at the Texas Jam. And their airplay on the radio was iconic. It was one of the freshest, newest bands that I could remember. I loved Tesla. I still to this day am a huge Tesla fan. But no interaction stories with the band. Not, no, never had the opportunity. And I'm sorry for it.
Says, fun fact for Charles, Cliff Burton was my childhood friend when he and his family still lived in Casitas Springs.
Casitas Springs by Lake Casitas. Wow, what a trip. LA, Los Angeles, and California for that matter, is such a huge area. But I had said this once before. For me to be standing at doing my job at the Whiskey and have somebody walk up to me and say, "Hey, I'm from where you're from," was never happened. It just very rarely ever happened. But I had friends of cousins and people who were like family of a couple of my close friends lived in Casitas Springs, and there's Lake Casitas out there. You can't swim in the lake, but you can fish in it. It's like some kind of a fish reserve kind of thing going on. I spent a lot of time up in that area for a couple of years of my life.
Apparently, we got Bent Tom lurking while also watching football. Fine, I guess. He's American.
You rock.
Gary's here because he said, well, the football game he was watching is finally over, so he's not watching the same one. Billy Maloney also worked a Tesla show. That's all. Speaking of which, we're gonna do a special time for a Billy episode.
Excellent.
Billy kind of did some similar stuff what you did, Charles, but in Cleveland, which we know is another hotbed.
Cleveland rocks, dude. Cleveland rocks. And they had, it's really cool to have been in that part of the country. It's amazing how the specific bands like on the East Coast and the Midwest bands, when that's where they came up, you get to the same kind of a vibe. It's something that I couldn't experience because I wasn't in that place. I can't wait to hear that. I can't wait to hear all those stories. I love hearing that stuff. When you were in Joe Walsh country, you grew up on Joe Walsh. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, really cool. So I'm visiting. This is a stupid story. I'll tell you. I'm visiting North Carolina. I'm like 9 years old, and I'm in the backseat of a Chevy with cousins that I had never met before, and we're flying down this country road. And we come up to a crossroads, and there's this old barn. It looked like it was 100 years old. I don't know, just this big old barn. And on a sheet, somebody had painted Tilly Edgar Winter, like 8 p.m. or 8:30 or something. I'll never forget it, And how cool would that show have been in the middle of, I don't even remember what part of North Carolina it was, but that's what I love about rock and all the stories that we talk about.
Let's see. Ryan Hall, he was really excited. I don't know, it's all caps. So he's yelling it from the back of the room. It's okay. It's okay. Ryan asked, any interaction with Southern rock bands coming through?
I worked a bunch of shows for like the Outlaws.
Great band.
I did an Allman Brothers show, but I didn't really interact with them. It was all security.
Sure.
I got to do a couple of really cool Molly Hatchet shows where I was really close to the band and got to see them, mainly dealing with the roadies. But that was really cool. I got to see Leonard Skinner once before, and then 2 times after the plane crash. I was young when I saw him the first time. I was 70. I was in high school. Probably even maybe a sophomore in high school, something like that. And then after, it was all tributes, and it was a completely different vibe. I think I shared on the show, one of the last shows I saw of Leonard Skinner was at the Universal Amphitheater in LA. I love Southern rock. It's something that I grew up in California, and so the only real Southern rock that I had exposure to was what was on the airplay when I was a kid. And so I obviously got Skinner, we got the Outlaws, we got Molly Hatchet, and then we got things like the Allman Brothers, and then it would kind of morph into things like what we call folk rock, which might be like Mac and things of that nature. But that's just interesting. If you grew up in the South, and I didn't grow up in the South, I grew up in LA, and you were a product of the area that you grew up in.
True. I would say that for sure. Jonathan McCullough, hello, welcome.
What's going on,
Hi, everyone. Let's see. He says, any stories about Steve Lukather, Dan Huff, or Michael Landau? Cheers for a great show. Now, I know they kind of all hung out at the Baked Potato mainly, but that's not to say you're recording in Hollywood all day. You might go and hang out in the evening in said neighborhood. So,
other than Toto and working Toto shows and being a Toto fan and a Lukather fan, let me say something about Steve Lukather. When there's these stories we hear of when he first started hearing Eddie Van Halen and how intimidated other guitar players were. There's a story of when he actually had heard Eruption. He was laying down tracks in the studio and he was sort of embarrassed. I'm just paraphrasing of how his solo was going to be on this one song and comparing it to what he was hearing Eddie do. And so there was this shockwave that went across, and a lot of guys were like losing nerve and having to step their game up. Well, I personally don't think that Steve Lukather ever anything to be ashamed of in any way, shape, or form. He, in many ways, is certainly as accomplished a guitar player as Edward Van Halen about knowing how to play guitar. He is I think it's GIT Institute trained musician. He's on the same level. He's on the top level. He's fully trained. I'm in awe of his guitar ability, and I think that Hold the Line is one of the greatest perfect guitar solos that's ever been created. Big Lukather fan. Never any interaction with him or the other guys, other than Toto shows. That's about it.
Yeah, I remember. They used to hang out at the Baked Potato a lot, like those guys.
Yeah, and so we talked about Anthony Steele and a couple of other musicians, the Black Sheep. We talked about them once before. Yeah, he was a sessions guy. He was a Baked Potato guy. He was working 2 different lives. That's another world over there. It's the world of Motown and jazz and fusion. It's on the other side of the mountain. It's not even in the same town as where all the other clubs are. It's got its own vibe, its own place in California. The only other club, it's unfortunate because I frequented the Baked Potato. It wasn't my thing. But I did get to the Lighthouse down in Hermosa Beach, which is certainly as iconic a jazz club as the Potato. Absolutely. There's no argument to that. So I got some really great exposure from that particular music at a very early age. I can remember being 12 years old on a skateboard or on a Strand Cruiser, hanging out because it's right on the Strand or Hermosa Beach, and listening to some of the best jazz in the world being played, 100 feet away inside a very building. Yeah, that's priceless. You can't top that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Got Blackjack Guitar in here. Travis.
What's going on, man? It's good to see you, man.
Hey, Rob Cunningham. Are you home from England yet? Or are you just late night in the UK? I'm loving the photos. He's been all over the UK the last couple of weeks. Pretty cool. That's why I haven't reached out to you to say, hey, he's busy, enjoying life. Eddie's back. Awesome.
Hey, welcome, bro. That's awesome. I was thinking about a story to tell you guys. I do have one, and I'll love to tell it to you. It's a Robin Crosby story. It's it's more along the lines of interaction with me than it is a concert or anything he did on stage. It was funny. I'll just go ahead and tell you guys this. It'll take just a little bit. It's really funny, and it's
nice. Finally home.
First time Robin and I yelled at one another and got truly pissed off at each other, and I'm going to share it with you.
All right, this is going to be a rare thing because we know you're Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, usually keeping on the brighter side of life and all. He's like, all right, here's about me getting in an argument with a guy. All right.
Yeah. Well, he used to drive this. I think I've told the story before, but he had a Chevy Chevette that was his sister's. It was kind of a shitty blue color, and it ran decent. It wasn't a piece of crap or anything like that. It just looked a little funny when you think of Robin Crosby.
I'm just watching him getting in and out of one of those.
A Chevy Chevette. I mean, we were both a couple of big guys, And,
like I have a hard time getting in and out. I'm only 6 foot even.
Well, we were very nocturnal in those days. We didn't see a lot of sunlight. We were up at night, all night long, all the time, because I worked until 2 a.m. At this time,
both work nights.
We worked nights, and we were night people. It's funny. I remember, the whole Hollywood vampire thing they talk about. It seems like every generation wants to, say, hey, we're the Hollywood vampires. Look, I remember the real vampires back in the day, and they haven't changed. It's the same thing, just different people.
Even when John Lennon thought he was the Hollywood vampires, like go back decades before. How many Hollywood types were out there? There's always been a scene, right?
Yeah, yep. That's just the way it is, It's a nightlife thing, and it's you really can't do one, or you got to do one or the other. You're a human. You have to sleep at some time, and you can only stay up for so many days till you got to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. So that being said, one night, it's after I had gotten home from work. I was engaged when Robin had broken up with Susie. I had talked about that before. We dated cocktail waitresses who shared an apartment for the better part of a year, just to give some backstory to this.
And that's how, for those that are new to the channel, that's how Charles and Robin Crosby became friends.
Exactly.
And we've all been there, folks. We're with our significant other. She's like, hey, I want to hang out with my friend such and such, and she's going to bring her boyfriend. So you're coming along, Charles. And you're like, oh, dear God, I hope we have something in common. Well, fortunately, it's like, do you like music? Yeah, I like music. Do you like music too? Yeah, I like it. So you guys had that at the very least.
Well, I'll share this part of this. When I met Robin Crosby, I was working at the Whiskey. I was working at the backstage door. He had been there in the club that night. It was within the first week, 7 to 9 days that I had been in the club working. And I'm standing at this door, and I noticed this tall guy standing over there. He introduces himself, says, hey, shakes my hand. Robin was a very clean-cut, personable, polite, mannered, well-mannered dude, okay? He was awesome. And we started talking, and I was telling you guys earlier that the odds on me running into somebody who was from where I was in LA was very rare. It didn't hardly happen. Well, the first conversation I have with Robin is we're talking about, he says, where you come from? I said, Manhattan Beach. He says, well, that's where I'm giving you a short story. He said, well, that's where I'm living. I said, really? I said, about where? And he said, well, 8th Street. And I said, wow, that's where I surf. He says, that's where I surf. And so that's how we became friends. We started talking. We just, that's how.
Symmetry says, he sounds Canadian. Yes.
Right there, Symmetry. You rock, brother. And the band Rat was nothing but a bunch of surfers from La Jolla. And that's really what it was. And then Jakey Lee was an Army brat. He came in, he got transplanted to there. They all knew each other from a very, as 14, 15, 16 years old. At the time of the story I'm going to tell you, we're talking approximately 3 months before the EP came out. So we're talking 1982, approximately June, the middle of the year. Okay.
That would be the Mickey Rat EP, right?
No, we're talking just before Out of the Cellar came out.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. We're talking before Rat. Literally, Warren was in the picture at this time. Jake was out, and Robin was happy. I had told this story before. I'll back up and I'll bring it up to speed for you guys. There was a period of time when Jakey Lee was playing in Rat, and he was pissing Robin off. He wouldn't let Robin play any dual leads. He wouldn't let him get involved in anything other than just backup rhythm.
Right.
And it was pissing him off. He was unhappy. Well, turns out Jake leaves. He ends up, you know how it all transpired. He ends up going into Aussie, firing George Lynch, who ends up getting with Doc, and that's music history there.
Which really worked out for the best all the way around.
We could camp out on that all night. That was a major shift in things, and it.
Yeah, and I think and that worked out. Like, sure, George Lynch with Ozzy probably would have worked. Jakey Lee with Rat wasn't working. Wasn't working. We may not have heard of Jakey Lee or Rat as a result, because if the chemistry's not there.
Yeah.
And we may not have heard of Dawkins either.
That's right.
Because with that perfect chemistry to do the initial lot. Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, he's out and Warren's in, and he's very happy. He's in a very happy place, and he's no longer he's not with Susie anymore. Susie's dating somebody else, and so I don't see him as much because there's no more real hangout time at this point.
Right.
It had just all kind of come to an end within like a month and a half before that. And I told the story about I told the story about that little guitar lesson thing we did. That was just like 2 months before the story I'm telling you right now. So things were moving, and within a year of the story I'm telling you right now, Rat was a bona fide thing, and his life had changed. It was, they were on that treadmill of success at that point. Big time. But he's driving this kind of shitty blue Chevy Chevette hatchback. And it's about 4:30 in the morning. And to make a long story short, he's going to pick up his Flying V. He's got to go up through Topanga Canyon. And it's like a 45 minute trip. He asked me if I'd like to go. I said, sure, man, no problem. Because that's kind of what we were just hanging.
And gives you a chance to catch up more too, right?
Well, we were all caught up. We were hanging out and we were having fun. And I had just gotten off work. And
sure,
he's Robin Crosby, and he was cool to be around. Let's just put it like that. And so anyway, we take off. We're hanging. We're getting up. We're going up through Topanga Canyon. And for those of you who don't realize, Topanga Canyon is a winding road that has other roads that go off of it. And there's specific homes in different places. And it's a lifeline to the valley. It's a lifeline to other areas. And so anyway, we're winding, and we've gotten off of the canyon now, and we're going up, and he's a little lost. He's a little bit lost. He's unsure of where he's at. It's getting to be close to 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning now at this time. And we're winding up this road. And it's still dark outside. The sun had not come up yet.
Well, I'm just going to point out too also, let's be honest, only in LA are you going to pick up a guitar at going on 5 in the morning.
Well,
And it's not like we want to get there bright and early when the place opens.
If he hadn't waited, this guy would have gone to bed.
Right.
People went to sleep, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then they slept until the evening. They got up and they went on with their day, depending on what you did. I slept until 4 or 5 o'clock every single day. Sometimes I had to get up a little earlier than that, but it was a nighttime thing. That's just how we were. You know what? That's the price you got to pay if you want to be in that world, because it's a nighttime world, man. You guys know. And anyway, he's doing this thing where he's not really sure where he's going, and he gets a little confused, and then he gets a freaking flat tire. Okay, so now we're sitting on the side of the road, and there's no really or anything. It's still very early in the morning. It's a weekday. It's not like it was the weekend or anything. And so I, and I didn't want him cutting his hands and shit up, guys. Okay, he was on that treadmill. I had the same vibe from him that I did from Motley Crue. Okay, right. He was, changing a tire. So I'm digging this crap out of his trunk. And he had a spare, and he had one of those stupid little scissor jack things, and he had the winder with the extension you put on it.
Yeah.
And I'm digging it all out of there, and I get the tire out. I've got his old tire off, and when I put the new tire on, I let and there wasn't enough air in the other tire. It went flat right down. I got pissed at him. I yelled at him. I said, GD, Robin, this is BS. I mean, I'm using expletives left and right. He starts yelling back at me, expletives left and right. I won't say it on the channel. Just use your imagination, guys.
Oh, no, you can feel free if you want. Yeah,
no, it's okay. I'm learning to curb my vulgarity because on other people's channels, it's not okay for me to
it's different if you're quoting somebody. That's
to quote it, I was using the F word a lot, and he was MFing me, and we started yelling and screaming. And anyway, it's still dark. The sun is not even up yet at all. And now this is 1982. There's no such thing as a cell phone. They had pay phones. We had no pay phone around us. We were miles from a pay phone. We were faced with one task at this point. We needed to call a tow truck, was kind of where our minds were at. Tow truck. We need a tow truck. We had to knock on somebody's door. Okay.
Been there.
This is something you just don't do anymore, guys.
No.
1982. It
wasn't unheard of.
Well, so the problem is we were in a very exclusive neighborhood.
Well, that's
and there was nobody around. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, well, maybe what we should do is maybe wait a little bit longer until people's kind of wake up, and maybe they'll start going to work, and we could flag somebody down and maybe use their phone. They're going to have to go into their house and, use their phone, or let them, whatever. So we're sitting there stewing, and we're both pissed off. I was being kind of a dick. I was, and I just was, but that's just how things were, Anyway, this car comes up the canyon. The first car we had seen since we had broke down. And there's these headlights, and they're getting closer and closer. And I'm standing out of the car, and Robin's standing over by his side, and these lights are coming up. They're coming up further and further. And about 45, 50 feet from us, they kind of come to a stop. And I'm standing there, and I can't really see because my eyes are blinded. Robin's eyes are blinded.
Hey, Pops. Quentin James.
And Quentin, what's going on, brother? It's good to see you, man. And this voice calls out and goes, "Hey, Chuck, is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, who?" And I look at Robin and said, I had a friend named David. David was actually one of my groomsmen who was supposed to be at my wedding to Gwen. He was a very close friend of mine. He was one of my buddies. Him and Robin had never met, but he knew Susie really well, and he knew Gwen really well, and he ran in my circle. But he knew who Robin was. He knew Robin was a rocker, but there was no, Rat was not a huge thing, but he knew who they were. But they never met. And so I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And he's on his way to his boss's house. Now, Dave worked for a guy named Peter. Okay. Now, Peter, I won't give his last name. He was married to a Hollywood actress. I won't give her name.
Okay.
You all know who she is. Peter was the photographer. He shot for Time Magazine, People Magazine, Life Magazine. He was the photographer to the stars in the 70s and the 80s. Okay. He was like the guy who went to all the parties and all that. He would get the picture of so-and-so with somebody see it in a magazine. That's this guy. Well, Dave was his assistant. He was his guy.
Right.
About a half mile up the road, Dave was on his way to work. He just happened to run into us as he was on his way to work. Ironic, right? So we get into his car and he takes us up there and we get up in and he says, now listen, Peter is in Paris. He's on the other side of the world. He's gone. He's taking care of business. He says, the ex-wife is here. She's living in the other side of the house. They're going through a divorce. Okay.
As happens.
She's living on the other side of the house. And he takes us in there. We walk up, we pull in to this beautiful mansion. It was beautiful, guys. As we're walking up the brick walkway to the front door, there is, I swear, a piece of tape that someone had put on the brick, splitting the walkway up to her side and his side. And this house was split down the middle. You walk in and there's a tape line and he looks at us and he goes, don't go on the other side of that line. And he gives us this little explanation. We're like this.
Oh, you have seen it's fucking LA. I get it.
We go through. This is classic LA, guys. This is normal. And so,
because part of LA is you got to have put on a certain amount of airs in certain circles. So you overpay for a house for the glamour couple, and then, like I said, you split up, and neither one of them can afford to fucking move out because everything's tied up in the house until.
As was the case, Ben. You hit the nail right on the head. Neither one was going to move or give up, and it was a whole thing. And it was a highly publicized divorce. Okay, it was major. But we come through the house, and he's shuffling us very quickly. We come out down this little walkway by this trellis, beautiful pool house, and then there's this building off to the side. This was Peter's studio. This is where he did all his work. This was Dave's office. Dave had his little office in there. We're on our way there to use a telephone to call the tow truck. He opens the door and he turns around and he says, now listen, he says, there's a bunch of work that's on the floors. He says, we've got all kinds of stuff. He's giving us like these vague explanations. He says, watch where you step. There were literally, and this is the weirdest thing, guys. The door opens up and there's a walkway, and then there's photographs, 8x10, glossy, super high quality color photographs all over the floor, all over by hundreds of them throughout the 3 rooms that we walk through in this place to get to his office. He says, just don't step on anything. And so me and Robin are like, we're looking at these and get a load of this. I start seeing Alan Alda and Larry Linville and Loretta Swit and Gary Berghoff and Jamie Farr, photos of them at like special events and in camouflage, like in the what they wore in the movie in the TV series MASH, right?
Right.
By the hundreds of photographs. And I'm looking at, and so me and Robin are immediately like, dude, Dave, what's all, we're asking questions, and Dave's like, he goes, listen.
Because MASH was like the biggest fucking TV show on. It was a big
part of the decade. I don't remember specifically how many years it ran, but it ran for like a decade. And I think 83 was the last year.
I think so. The ironic thing was it ran longer than the actual Korean War itself.
Yes. And it was the thing in the 70s, guys. Through the entire decade of the 70s, MASH was huge. It was huge. So I asked him what's going on. He said, okay. He says, listen. He says, what's going on, man? He says, listen, I'm going to give you some info. And he goes, You just can't tell anybody. And me and Robin are like, oh, tell us. And he goes, no. He says, promise me you're not going to say anything and I'll tell you. And he was my good friend. So, and he didn't know Robin for anything, but he tells us this. He says, listen, the series MASH is coming to an end in 1 year. He says, and nobody knows it. And he said that this was the, what he called the photo chronology of the entire series in photographs.
Wow.
With like all the special events and the private shit that they went through. This was all documented in photographs, and these photos, many of them were going to be in magazines for the next year.
Right. Because a lot of events, like watching Tone Talk the other night there with the photographer, he was saying like he would get hired, like he was doing the Hot for Teacher music video because they would hire a photographer to document the making of it.
Exactly.
That's how we documented shit back in the day. We didn't have somebody with a little Betamax B-rolling life and making documentaries. It was photographs that at most might be made into a documentary book, a coffee table book, right?
Yep.
Okay. I see where we're going here.
And so anyway, I'm looking at all these pictures, and then I start looking on the walls, and I'm looking at every actor you could think of was on these walls. All his personal photos and stuff. It was one of the most weirdest, coolest Hollywood experiences I ever had. And it's all because Robin got a freaking flat tire. All right. It was really cool. I would have never got up to Dave's.
Well, karma is real, Charles.
Yeah.
It's true. They had sexy photos of Corporal Clinger.
Well, yes. All over the freaking walls. Them sitting in a Jeep or them. Remember Colonel Flagg? Remember the dude who played Colonel Flagg? There were pictures of him. I don't remember his name. It was just really, really, really cool to see all that. And then, as the year went by and as the series was coming to an end, for 2 years in the grocery stores or where you're checking out, because magazines were big in the early 80s. I mean, they were king with it. I would see pictures and I'd say, I know who took that picture. I knew it. That was very cool. But so anyway, Robin makes his way to the back, gets to the phone, calls, gets a tow truck. It wasn't the worst thing to have to go through, but it didn't happen immediately. And so we get ourselves back out there and we're waiting for the truck to come and we walk ourselves out. And so we're walking and we didn't go back through the house. He walked us out this side gate to this driveway. And the funniest thing about being in Hollywood, you never know who you're going to run into, right? So I didn't tell you the name of the wife the ex-wife who was living near the side of the house, but her best friend was a lady by the name of Catherine Ross, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm walking and Robin's standing there and Robin goes like this. He hits me on the arm and he goes, dude, check it out. And I look up, I raised my head up, I look, and I recognized her immediately. The funny thing is, a Mercedes was coming up the driveway, right? And came and did the loop. And the guy driving the Mercedes was freaking Sam Elliott was driving it. And they ended up getting married like 2 years later. They weren't married.
Keith is always with the fucking trivia. He's like Sam Elliott's wife.
Yeah. And so that, it's just, I figured you guys would like that story. It's just a personal thing.
And that's the thing, because everybody's got to live somewhere, Charles, right? Everyone's got to live somewhere, especially in certain tax brackets, we'll say.
Yeah.
And then, but you have because film and television were separate industries, but they both happen to end up both in LA. And then you got the music industry there as well as conciliary, other, been a mecca for a lot of stuff.
Everything that has to do with that industry, that world, whether it be music, film, television, whatever.
Exactly.
Well, that was it. That's where it was.
And that's the funny part is, you could take a street of, let's say, a dozen houses. Okay, you could have, one rock star, 2 homes are famous actors, but then it's 3 are owned by producers, a director. It could be somebody who owns a prop company who's done well. There's so many different facets because there's somebody else could own a catering company. And it's just, but that, it's not like they're all famous people that live in the homes, but they're all, well off.
Well, it's funny. I'd never seen I had never seen anything like that. I think I'd seen a movie once before where somebody had put a tape line down the middle of a floor and said, okay, you're on that side of the room. This is my side of the room. That was a real thing, dude, in the biggest mansion I'd ever seen. You know, I saw a lot of mansions when I was there. After a couple of years of being up there, I was fortunate to see some pretty cool things,
Sure.
you know. But yeah, and that kind of story, I have a few of those.
Well, like you say, you could be at the whiskey, okay, and after work, and there's a dude, right? And the dude, he's cool, whatever, and you say, yeah, like let's go back to my place.
Yeah.
And you start, like say, and also you're like, where the fuck are we? And then all of a sudden, you turn a corner, you're like, some big ass mansion. You're like, well, who the fuck's this guy? Well, it's because, hey, yeah, my dad wrote the hit song for a movie 25 years ago, and he died of a heart attack 15 years ago, and now. And you still get residuals because it's like in the Wizard of Oz or some shit like that. Yeah. Over the rainbow money? Fuck, that's long money.
Yeah. It was fun being there. And
affluent taxidermists live there? Yes, Eddie.
Well, the weird thing is after I get completely out of doing all that and I start getting into construction at the very, very end of the 80s, I'm in a backyard working, doing a swimming pool renovation. You rock, bro.
He says this is shaping up to be a great show tonight, Ben. I love it when you have Charles on. He has the best stories.
Thank you. Thanks, Taylor. You rock, man. And so I'm there to do a pool renovation. I'm subcontracting. One of the first subcontracting jobs I had before I went to Hawaii. And I hear this lady's voice talking from above us. And I look my head up, and it's Barbara Streisand.
Jesus. Which is like uber celebrity, right? Like, come on. Especially, like, I'm thinking, like, at that time.
You know, and what do you say? What do you say? What do you say to Barbara Streisand? I just looked at her like an idiot. I just like, you know, and this guy, Bob, that was there was kind of running the thing. He was doing the communication with her, but you know, things like that happen.
Like, at that time, Charles, who would be the three biggest you would run into? Her, Liza Minnelli, and Elizabeth Taylor, basically. You know,
that would have been it. That
right, like that's what, because they were all like huge.
Yeah. Jaja was a thing. Ava was a thing still.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, right?
She slapped. Was it Jaja? Yeah, it was Jaja. She was drunk and she was in a Rolls Royce. Okay. You could Google, you could YouTube this. I think there's footage of it. And it was a Chips, one of the motorcycle cops, you know, like Eric Estrada, one of those guys pulled her over and asked her to step out of the vehicle and wanted her to do a sobriety test. And she was not going to have any of it. And she slapped him right upside the face. And so he arrests her. And a week later, or a couple of days later, she's in front of a judge apologizing. The media's all over it. And I laughed so hard when I saw it because Zsa Zsa Gabor can get away with slapping a cop.
Like back in the day, like how many times like would a Hollywood celeb get pulled over drunk and they're just like, well, we'll drive you home. Because right, like
and it was that way. And
as a result, said actor or actress may all of a sudden here's $10,000 for the kids' charity fund, or something or whatever.
Yep.
Like every time I remember even as a kid in the 80s, every time I saw a public service announcement of somebody warning us against something, I'm like, oh, you got caught doing something. That's why you're doing this.
Yeah. That's how it was. That's how it is, But no, that's the kind of thing it was. It was a lot of fun doing it. Everything changed for me after the 80s. I got to ride the 80s out in Los Angeles. I can say that I had a good run in the 80s.
And really, do you really want to be in LA after the 80s?
No, I don't think I did. I have some regrets. I'd said it before on the show. If I had it to do over again right now, knowing what I know, but that's a stupid thing to do because everybody would do something different. But as far as sticking with Motley Crue and riding that and maybe making a career out of being a roadie or something of that nature, I might at that age might have actually jumped on it and maybe given that a shot. But to be honest, my whole thing is I'm a contractor. I'm made to do stuff, not necessarily cater to someone else.
I will say now,
know?
Charles, like if you were doing exactly what you're doing now, but if you were doing it there instead of there,
Mhm.
you would be 10 years older if you were doing it there because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having spent time in both, I'm just saying it's a much more laid back attitude in North Carolina. Like, sure, there's going to be dicks everywhere, but chances are you're putting in a pool for a dick more often than not in LA as opposed to North Carolina. And oh, this isn't like perfect. Hey, whereas I'd be like, hey, Charles, that isn't quite right. Could you just, you see, you're like, yeah, no problem. But whereas I'd be like, how dare you? Blah, blah. You're just like, I don't need this. This is why I'm overcharging you for everything.
Yeah. I hear you, Ben. But the things turn out the way they do. I'm glad I have some great stories I can share with you guys. I have a few more. I'm keeping some. I've got some I keep for the channel, and then hopefully over the next year, I'm going to run out at some point.
Well, I was going to say the last show will be Charles Greene, the 0 F's given, and it's just like I'm laying out. All I got left is the gold. The
When I
F's.
get to the point where I just keep repeating myself, just tackle me. It's okay. It's okay. But I'm not there yet. I'm not even close to there yet.
Well, and I think it's just because certain things will spark ideas. Like we've talked about on shows before, somebody will bring up something. You're like, I've never. Oh yeah, I remember this one night and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell some stories in the future of I used to hang out with some pretty hardcore punk bands.
Sure. Like Terminator 45 says, well, then we shall have reruns after that.
Oh, exactly. Absolutely. I love Social Distortion. I love TSOL. I love the Circle Jerks. A band called Fear. There were some punk bands that I really, and it wasn't so much I was into punk. I really was not. I loved classic rock. I came out of Deep Purple and bands like Jethro Tull, and I transitioned into bands like Iron Maiden and Priest and UFO, and that's really where my music was.
Sure.
But for some reason, I just got a lot of friends who were in punk bands. I met them in the clubs. I'd interact with some of the roadies and some of the fans. It's funny. I met a lot of sisters of guys.
Josh was like, yes, all the punk stories, please.
Yeah. Punk was cool. Some of the punk stuff was wonderful. I have wonderful punk stories, but it's self-destructed. And my worst punk stories are the single worst stories I have. But we'll tell some in the future. We'll do that.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting to the 75-minute mark. Why don't we do that giveaway? Because somebody does have to work in the morning.
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, guys, I got to get up super early, and I don't mean to be a party pooper at all. I said party pooper. John, done tackle me, bro. Not cool.
We'll just edit that out in post. I believe that's LA terminology.
Well, hey, what I want to do, you guys, is this. I'm going to show you a picture of a very young person. In this case, it'll be a male in both cases, and we're going to do this twice. The only stipulation is you need to be able to give Ben your mailing information and your shirt size, and you tell him or tell us what band you want. For me,
and no repeat winners, Ferd and Eric.
Exactly.
So you guys get to put this out. Hey, Jimmy, right?
If you win one, the first one, you're ineligible to win the second time, so someone else has a chance. I'd like to at least get a couple of people out a shirt each.
I dig it.
And so are you guys ready? You ready to do this?
We are. I will even solo you out.
Now, the first individual I'm going to show you a picture of is from I'll give you a hint, is primarily known in the punk world.
There we go. So first correct answer I see in the chat, we'll declare the winner.
All right, you guys ready? Now this is a black and white photograph.
And I don't even know who it is. I didn't get to see.
Yeah, and I didn't even share these with Ben. And here we go. So it may take me a second to get this correct to where you guys can see it. Let me get the angle right, but I think you'll be able to see that. Let me see if I can get it a little better. How is that right there? Does that work, you guys?
That works. I don't know who it is, so I don't know how I'm supposed
It's
to.
not the best photo, but it'll blow your mind. And if you guys are into punk, you know who this is. I'm gonna say it like that.
All right. So we've got a bunch of guesses in here already. We've got, is it Billy Idol?
No.
Iggy Pop?
Yes. Who said Iggy Pop?
Ian's Guitar Shack was the
Ian,
first to say
you rock, dude. That is Iggy Pop. I can't believe you got it that fast.
He did the first thing. He said Billy Idol and then Iggy, and right below was Billy Baloney saying Iggy.
So I'll do it like this, and I'll just do it like this. Wait a minute. Sorry. Oh, hang on, guys. My bad. Hang on. I'm an idiot. Let me do it like this. Auto rotate.
Wow, a lot of punk fans in here.
There we go.
There's a lot of guesses.
All righty. Here we go. Bam. Can you see that?
I can see that.
Yeah. So that's Iggy Pop. I'm actually in. Dude, I'm surprised you got that so fast. Are you a fan? I'm curious. Because that was a really big. I was like,
we had 3 guesses for Iggy, I'll say, because Billy Baloney and Stephen Holt also mentioned.
Oh, you guys are fans, man. You guys are.
And that's right. Billy told the story on one of our Zoom calls, Charles. Billy Baloney shared a beer once with Iggy Pop.
Really? I would love to hear that story. I was fortunate enough to hang around where he was hanging a couple of times. I may have said hello to him. He was backstage on a couple of occasions, but Ian,
if you email me at canucksandguitars@gmail.com with your full name and mailing address,
excellent,
shirt size, and what band you want, and also let us know in the chat what flavor band you're going to choose, because I'm curious on that one. So
I have pretty good t-shirt taste.
He does.
No one's gotten mad at me yet, so you'll do well, brother. And congratulations, man.
Yeah,
I love it when the chat gets stuff. I love it. Okay.
He says, "I want to be your dog." I've covered that song.
All right. I'm going to show you another photograph. It's a little bit clearer than the last one.
That's true. Symmetry. We'll get in on that. All right. So
you ready?
Folio. Boom. All right. Oh, I know that person. Why do I know that person?
This is not punk, by the way. This is not punk. This is regular rock and roll.
Not Johnny Rotten.
Nope.
John Lennon?
Yes.
First correct answer I see in the chat is Stephen Holt. Right behind that was Randy Crooks with John Lennon, but Stephen Holt again.
Holt, you absolutely rock. And there they are. You can tell in the nose. You can see it.
Yeah.
That's a young John Lennon.
If he wasn't so big on the right, we'd be able to see his eyes better, but you know.
Hey, that's how it rolls. You guys, congratulations, man.
And Ian,
I didn't think
this guy was our first winner, Charles. He wants to remain eligible for future prizes, apparently, because he's going to give his prize to who was the next in line there with Billy Baloney. So, Billy.
So, Ian's giving up his prize to Billy.
He is.
Nice move, man. Great. Excellent. Excellent, brother.
Apparently, he literally held the door open for Billy.
Very cool. Very cool.
Billy's okay with that.
Excellent. I didn't expect that to go so fast.
Okay, Stephen Holt had said he'd seen the photo before.
Yeah, yeah.
And Blackjack Guitar's watching the wrong episode. He guessed Robert Plant.
We did.
Apparently, Stephen Holt also says "pay it forward." Okay.
Very cool.
I am not sure. So,
chat, you guys rock. That's a class move from the get-go. Very cool, man. Very cool.
Nice. Guys are cool. Not gonna lie. So we'll go for a few more minutes here, folks.
You know, I remember there was a girl who used to work the sound at the Whiskey. Her name was Becky. Mm-hmm. Becky had a sister. She would come in. We almost went on a date once.
Oh yeah, we wanted to talk about Becky, did we not? We were talking off air
Well,
about Becky.
yeah, I just want to give her a shout out. You know, she's for a female. She had a job. She did the sound at the Whiskey for about 2 years, and she was the only chick on the strip who did the sound, and she was really good. And she has done sound, and when I say she did the sound from 80, 81, 82, over almost a 3-year period, the whole time I was there and beyond, she's done music for every hair band you can think of. She did their sound, and the number of people that she interacted with, she was real good friends with. I remember she was real good friends with Tommy. Her and Tommy were kind of a thing for a bit, you know, not to you have to get too much info, but she was one of the nicest people I met when I was in Hollywood. And I was remembering a story I was going to tell you guys. And I think I'm going to save the gist of it. I may save it for another show because it's quite lengthy, but there was a bass player named Tim Bogart. He played for Vanilla Fudge, is like where his claim to fame really was. And in the early 80s, the end of 1980 and 81, he was working on a solo career, and he was doing a lot of club work in all the clubs.
Boner Jam. He says, I'm not here for hookups. He says, but I'm shaved and have 217 photos on Instagram with no clothes on, looking to share memories and Minute Minaj videos. Love hugs and kisses.
Excellent, man.
Once again, all super chats will be going to the girls for Christmas.
Very cool, man. Very cool. And so anyway, Becky had a history of falling in love with rock stars. She would interact because she was doing the sound for a band, and she was beautiful, beautiful girl. And she would fall for rock stars. And so she falls for Tim Bogart, who was considerably older than her. She was 20. She was my age. So she was 21, essentially 22. And to be her age and actually have the job that she had at that young age,
yeah,
to tell you something, okay? And I mean, she was, she worked for Mario and Louie, and
if I saw anyone that age doing it, male or female, anyone that age, I'd be like, who do they know, right?
Well,
but then you hear the sound, I'd be like, oh, you know. But I would think that initially, because I would just see I want to see a crusty chain smoking sound guy. I've been a crusty chain smoking sound guy. Like, you know, that's the guy, you know, the guy, stay away. Yeah. But okay.
Yeah, well, she was, I remember when Saxon came there and they were trying to take things over. They did take things over essentially. And she was having to help them keep them straight. Right. Brilliant girl, very, very skilled in what she did. Well, she falls for Tim Bogart. And I remember, and I'm only telling you guys this because I thought about the other day. I haven't thought about it in years, and I was driving, and it just came to my mind. I remember this favor I had to do when I came to work one night. And anyway, I'll tell you guys the story. So Tim Bogart was there in LA for a very short period of time, trying to work on he was, doing some recording, and he was playing a few clubs. And so for the better part of about a month, she was dating him, and it was coming time for him to have to leave, going back on the road again. Okay. And she didn't take it well. And so I'm come to work one night, and I love her. We're friends. And I come to work one night, and I'm sitting there eating with everyone before the show, before the club opened. And Louis comes walking out, and he goes, "Hey, Chuck, you got a phone call?" I said, "Really?" Very seldom did I get a phone call at the club. It happened occasionally, but so I get up and I go into the office and I pick up the phone, and it's Becky. She's in tears, and she's in Rancho Cucamonga, which is about 35 miles east of LA, quite literally. And it's an hour and a half drive with traffic for the most part to get there and get from where I was to where she was. And she's asking me to come and pick her up And she's in tears. She's not making a whole lot of sense. And I could hear Tim in the background yelling at her, and they were arguing. And so I look at Louis, and Louis like had already been on the phone with her. He was privy to the gist of what was
He was aware of the situation.
And so I'm like this, and he goes here. He goes, come here. He goes, you gonna pick her up? I said, I work here. He goes, you can take off. You go pick her up. We all loved her. We looked out for her. And and he goes, I'll never forget. I'm gonna say this. He goes, that fucking Tim Bogart. That's what he said, right? That's what Louis said. And he was mad because Tim didn't sell the club out. He was supposed to be a big to do. A lot of record people came. It was maybe a two-thirds full night over a couple of shows. And so Louis was kind of mad at him. And anyway, Becky was in tears, and we all wanted to go save her. So he throws me $40. He says, here, you drive. I said, do I get to drive your Corvette? I was joking with him, right? And he had this really cool black Stingray with red. Well, they're all Stingrays with 79 is the year with red leather.
My personal favorite, the Coca-Cola body style.
Well, he for a moment, I thought I was serious, and he actually considered it. I would have loved to have driven Louis' freaking vet across the mountain over down into Rancho Cucamonga. That would have been awesome. But he said, no, you drive your car. You go put the gas in your car. And so I said, cool, bro. So anyway, I took the time and I went and picked her up. When I get there, and it took me forever. Now, there's no GPS, you guys. Okay, I'm going off of directions. I had to stop no less than 3 times to use pay phones to call this number. And 2 of the times I called, Tim answered the phone, and he was livid. I've yelled and screamed with Tim Bogart a couple of times on the phone. And when I got to pick her up, she was quite literally standing in the house, and he was on the driveway in this house with her bags, trying to get her the hell out of his life. And it was just comedic to me at the time. I don't mean to make light of it, the sweet thing, but it happened a couple of times with Becky over the year or 2 that I was with her. Scooped her up, and for the next hour, I had to listen to her tell me about her last month with Tim Bogart. I know things that nobody needs to know, you know.
You can't unknow this stuff.
Well, I feel I know Tim Bogart, on some level. It's kind of, and rest in peace, Tim. He passed away.
I think we've all been on the receiving end of one of those rants because they call it's not a conversation, because it's one side. And I remember a couple of times, with friends over the years, they're going on about an ex or whatever, and you're just like, well, I know that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just keep driving, and it's like, okay, yeah.
He was an all right guy, but he was trying to resurge his career, and it wasn't happening. It didn't happen, and so it was just another kind of a bittersweet interaction that went on in the clubs in Hollywood, man. That's how it was. Yeah, guys, it's always nice coming on here and talking with you guys. It's one of the best communities. I
was going to say, this kind of turned into the Valentine's episode, with talking about relationships, and
we can do that a lot. I'm going to always talk about real life and tell you guys things that happen. I kind of open myself up a little bit in the stories because in many ways I'm interacting and doing things in them, and I don't mind sharing that with you. Want to hear it?
I love the Robin Crosby story because so did he ever get the Flying V?
Absolutely. Yeah. But he had to pay $50. I lent him money for the tow truck. He wasn't really. I'll say this: Robin, had a really great family unit. His siblings and his mom and dad. Our fathers had similar jobs. His dad was a history professor. Mine was a business professor. So we have really. It's kind of weird how many things we had in common in our families, not just coming from the beach.
Which probably helped you guys create that initial friendship in many ways, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you both like to surf the same spot, and you come from similar backgrounds.
I remember the first time he broke up a fight between 2 of his friends. I've told this story before, but this is the kind of guy he was. He would not let you get in. If he knew you and he had actually cared about you, he wouldn't let you fight somebody else. He would throw himself between you and make you fight him before you could go fight someone else because he cared that much about you. He was a one of a kind, awesome dude. And he, you know, unfortunately, he got the downside of his fame. It ate him up. But he lived the life of 10 men. You know, he did. That came out of his mouth. That's a quote. And it's true. You know, absolutely true. Yeah.
True. Well, this has been awesome, Charles. We're going to do it again. I'm going to predict sometime in December, we'll say.
Very cool, man.
Maybe very cool. If you can think of a holiday story, possibly.
I've got a couple of really nice Christmas stories.
Well, because it's always interesting, because similar, like we were saying, working nights, been there, like waking up and like, well, I go on stage at midnight, type thing. What do I do until then? And and get together. Like I remember we did a Thanksgiving show one year, Thanksgiving Sunday, because we celebrate Thanksgiving on Sundays. Thanksgiving Sunday punk show with legendary punk band SNFU was the headliner.
Oh, very cool.
I ended up doing sound for that event, but we did a punk rock potluck beforehand. And with 5-6 bands, and everybody brought a couple dishes, and it was awesome.
Excellent.
One of the best nights of my life.
Very cool.
Definitely. Very so we will definitely do it again. So hold the line there, Charles. Thanks everybody that tuned in tonight. We do appreciate it. If you haven't already, please hit the like. And of course, if you're new, please subscribe. Channel's growing all the time, so mazel, join the fun. I'll be back tomorrow night with Trev and Terry with Canucks with Guitars, live Q&A, and there is a topic, I can't remember. And this week, Soda Pop, a Jamaican grape soda.
Nice.
I was shocked. I looked at it. It's probably the coolest looking bottle I've ever seen in my life. And so check that out. And then the video on me shimming the neck on a vintage guitar. So if you don't know how to shim the neck on a guitar, learn alongside me, because I'd never done it before until
it's
then.
What's on the bench, guys.
Yep. So
Love it.
I've been Ben. That's been Charles. You being you. Hold those doors open. Let Doug's wife in ahead of you in traffic and do things because she's real. Yep. Again, Zoom hang this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern for channel members and patrons. If you don't know where to find the link, patrons, find it on Patreon. Go figure. Dale Palmer at the end, which is awesome. Means we're legit.
Dale, you're right there,
and
bro.
if you're a channel member, it'll be on the community tab. It'll be a community post with a link to the Zoom hang. So we'll see you tomorrow night, folks. Cheers, rock on, and of course, don't litter. Just don't.
Hey, don't litter.